Okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is some troubleshooting of typical cutting issues, and we'll show you some examples of Okay, now we're going to talk about what might happen if you put your mold into the unit and pushed a button and left the unit on its own for a time and came back, and upon removing the mold, you discovered some typical artifacts. I have a mold here that has just a single hole basically drilled into it and nothing else evident in the mold. And then I have a second mold here that has some slots, and they're interspersed by no cutting action whatsoever. So it's kind of a skip or a dashed line, if you will. It's important to understand if the spindle was moving. So if you get this type of artifact, the first thing you probably want to do is reinitiate another cycle just briefly to ensure that the spindle is turning. If the spindle is turning, then the cause of these types of artifacts is undoubtedly moisture in the beads interrupting the bead flow. And you can also detect this by initiating a cycle and placing your finger behind this front tube and looking for air bubbles or a lack of beads in this front tube. If you see any missing beads or air bubble type phenomenon in this front tube, that also is an indicator of moisture in the beads interrupting the bead flow. Okay. Both of these types of artifacts indicate intermittent bead flow, and the primary cause of intermittent bead flow is moisture in the beads themselves, causing them to adhere to each other and coagulate, if you will, inside the unit. As we mentioned before, the humidity comes in either through the beads themselves as they are introduced into the jar. If they're brought in on the beads themselves, that can be handled by keeping the hot rock in the bead bucket, making sure it's plugged in at all times and properly submerged in the bead bucket. And then the second source of moisture getting into the beads is via the air line itself. And during the maintenance section, we detailed the removal of the moisture once it's collected in the bowl. But in some cases, if that's a frequent occurrence, your maintenance or plumbing contractor can install a dryer unit either at the main air supply or just before the excavator and dry out the air that may have accumulated in the lines. And if it's a chronic problem, it's probably worth the investment to do that. I have a partially divested ring here. The cycle was aborted at this point here, but just want to illustrate for troubleshooting depth of cut. You'll notice that there is no skipping or any other type of artifacting that would suggest that the bead flow was intermittent. However, the depth of cut into the interior of the investment mold is not as deep as desired. So there's two solutions for this situation. The first one, of course, is to increase the setting on the knob on the front panel of the unit. Going clockwise will increase the depth of cut. However, if you've had the knob in a stable position for a long period of time, you're using the same investment brand, the same concentration of investment, then and your depth of cut begins to get shallow, the most likely cause for that is loss of air or pressurization of the system. Okay, air pressure loss, once again, goes back to the quality of the seal in the lid of the jar and in the tip of the jet nozzle. So it's important to make sure that these O-ring seals are maintained properly, and also that the snugness of the lid is just where it wants to stop, and then another 3/8 to a half an inch to make sure that you get a good tight seal. That is the primary reason why a depth of cut would wander on you.